Good afternoon. Happy day. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Felicia Sprague. I am the regional manager of Lighthouse Dental, overseeing multi-site operations in Toronto, Ontario. I'm a seasoned manager known for my focus on strong leadership, operational excellence, and prioritizing mental health. I'm dedicated to shaping a workplace culture grounded in communication, innovation, and patient-centered care.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Dr. Aisling Whitaker, a dentist and clinic owner in sunny Toronto today. Before earning my dental degree, I completed a PhD in psychology, and I have spent more than 15 years consulting with dental clinics and speaking at conferences on marketing, team culture, and practice systems. I'm a faculty member of Clearly Aligned, a comprehensive clear aligner education platform. Felicia and I are also the co-founders of Dental Hive, an app for finding dental jobs and hiring dental team members. We created Dental Hive to help clinics on the pain points of hiring, HR, and employee retention. We welcome you to join us in the app, whether you're tuning in from Canada or the USA. And we have released a big update today that has new features such as team scheduling and team surveys built directly into the app. So we invite you to update your app and invite your team.
So today we're going to be talking about one of the most powerful leadership differentiators, and that is emotional intelligence, also known as EQ. So emotional intelligence is how we perceive emotions, access and generate emotions, and actively regulate them. And the goal isn't just to feel better. The goal is to promote intellectual growth, better decisions, stronger teams, and ultimately better results. The leaders who stand out today are not necessarily the loudest or the most technically skilled. They're the ones who can stay steady under pressure, who know how to read the room, can navigate conflict, and they can bring out the best in others. So let's break this down into something practical. Emotional intelligence has four critical domains, and it's often described in this matrix. So first, we have the recognition of self, which is self-awareness. Then we have the regulation of ourselves, which is self-management. Next, we have the recognition of others, which is social awareness. And then finally, we have the regulation of relationships, which is relationship management. So think of it this way. First, we understand ourselves. Then we can manage ourselves. Then you can understand others. And then finally, you can positively influence others. So each component interacts with the other. A highly emotional, intelligent leader has balanced strengths across all four of these areas. So today we're going to walk you through each one and give you some practical tools that you can use immediately. So first, we're going to start with some self-awareness. So what is self-awareness? Self-awareness is the ability to recognize your own emotions, understand your mood, and recognize the impact that those emotions have on others. It includes the ability to accurately assess your strengths and limitations, to understand your emotional patterns. It also gives you ability to recognize your value and your self-worth, and notice how your emotions can affect your performance and your relationships. So let's make this real. Have you ever walked into a situation and you're already feeling so stressed and you notice that like the energy in the room shifts? You may not have said anything negative, but your tone, your posture, your facial expressions, they all communicated something, and other people can sense that. So that's what we call impact. So self-awareness means sort of taking a moment to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling it? And then how might this affect the other people around me? Another important part of self-awareness is recognizing your triggers. So, what environments tend to trigger stress for me? Maybe what types of people trigger stress? What topics or situations? Because emotions don't show up mentally, they show up physically as well. So, we feel emotions in our body. Some people notice maybe tight shoulders or clenched jaw, some shallow breathing. So, when you learn to kind of recognize how emotions show up in your body, you can catch them earlier before they start influencing your behavior. So, what are the things we can do to sort of strengthen our self-awareness then? So, a few practical strategies include self-reflection or journaling. So, you take a few minutes at the end of your day to reflect on the moments that triggered strong emotions. Writing things down like that, it really helps you identify patterns, such as maybe when you're feeling defensive or energized or frustrated, and what might have caused those reactions for you. Also, mindfulness or quiet reflection. So that simply just means paying attention to the present moment without judgment. Even just like a few minutes of quiet breathing can help notice what you're feeling before you carry those emotions into another conversation or a meeting or a situation. You also ask yourself intentional questions throughout the day. Build that habit of checking in with yourself during key moments. So, before difficult conversations or before meetings or when stress arrives, just ask yourself questions like, okay, what am I feeling right now? What outcome do I want from this interaction? Questions like those can really help you, can help shift you from reacting to responding, which is what we want to do. You also want to pause occasionally to scan your body for tension. So, like we talked about, emotions often show up physically before we actually recognize them. So, take a brief moment, pause, notice your tight shoulders, shallow breathing, or clenched jaw, because that's your body signaling that stress is building. And then it gives you the opportunity to reset before it affects your behavior. And then before any difficult conversation, just try asking yourself one thing. What am I bringing into this room? Because that one question alone can really help elevate your leadership.
And that's something that Felicia and I have worked so hard on over the last few years when we've been working on our team retention practices for our clinics, is really focusing on ourselves and what we're bringing into the situation.
And
Um,
responding like a leader, right? Like you want to respond like a leader, and that means knowing yourself.
yeah, it's something I had to really personally work on myself. Like I really had to check
Absolutely.
myself before these difficult situations because they come up micro situations on a day to day, and then maybe less frequent, where you have to prepare for a team meeting. Maybe there's something difficult going on between two team members or whatever. Being able to take yourself out of that situation or your emotion of how you're feeling, because that's not going to help you help the team and be that leader.
Absolutely.
So, if self-awareness is noticing the emotion, self-management is deciding what to do with it. And this is where leadership maturity really shows up. And it's something that I've really had to work on, over the last 10 years. So,
We all have.
self-management, yeah, it's still in progress.
It's still progress.
Self-management is the ability to disrupt the unproductive impulses, to think before reacting, to maintain honesty and integrity, to stay flexible in evolving situations, and to motivate yourself towards your goals. So for me, I definitely used to respond impulsively in situations, and I have had to really adopt that think before reacting strategy. And sometimes that will even mean saying, thank you for bringing, if they team member might bring something pretty heavy to you, and just acknowledging, like, thank you for bringing that to me. I need a day. Like I'm not going to respond in this moment. I need a day because and sometimes I need a weekend, like come at a Friday. So I've heard everything you've said, and I'm just not going to give you my response yet. Maybe it's that I also need to talk to the management. Maybe it's that I just need to unpick it and remove myself from the situation. But thinking before reacting has been a very, very positive skill. So one of the simplest and most powerful tools is the pause. When your emotions spike, pause, reset. Give your brain a moment to catch up with your feelings so that your response is intentional rather than reactive. So the pause can look like a few different things. Taking one breath before responding, asking a clarifying question instead of making that defensive statement and judgment in that moment, and adjusting your physical posture, turning towards the person and facing them. Like in my office, the way we're set up, our backs are often to people as they walk in the room in our little note-taking room. So like turning around and like looking at that person and briefly removing yourself from the situation. We are the leaders, we are the managers, we are the owners. So we do have to act that way. We're not the same as the people that we employ. We have to show up as that leader. Sometimes the pause shows up in how we respond to conflict. So instead of reacting with like, that's not true, try, help me understand what you're seeing. That small shift turns defensiveness into a dialogue. So start collecting your data. It's like collecting the medical history from the patient before jumping in to make a decision. We need to know where they're coming at the situation with. Self-management also involves preparing for the difficult situations before they happen. Meetings like this and sitting down with your management team afterwards to determine how are we going to manage these situations as they come up. And sometimes a difficult situation needs to come up for you to realize we actually don't have a strategy in place for how we're going to handle this. So if you know a conversation or meeting is going to be challenging coming up, you've got one this week or next week, what outcome do you want? And what emotions might come up for you, or what are you anticipating from the other person? And how will I respond if I feel triggered? Like, what is the strategy that I have to maintain my decorum and maintain my leadership position? Preparation helps prevent what psychologists call emotional hijacking, where our reactions take over before our thinking brain has time to engage. We turn into that 4-year-old child with no impulsivity control. And one final point, regulation, emotional regulation is not suppression. Self-management doesn't mean ignoring or hiding those emotions. It means expressing it intentionally and constructively.
Absolutely. And that regulation of self, it really helps us to kind of move to, shifting outwardly to social awareness. So social awareness, it is built on two core abilities, and that is empathy, which is such a huge one in leadership space, and also organizational awareness. So, at its core, social awareness is your ability to understand other people's perspectives, right? You want to take an interest in their concerns. You want to recognize what's happening beneath the surface. In practical terms, it's the ability to read the room. So, what is reading the room? It's like you're conducting a quick emotional and social scan. So, you're asking yourself questions is like, what's everyone's motivation here? Who feels heard? Who might be feeling kind of defensive? And what's not being said out loud? So, what you're essentially doing is you're using empathy, which is critical. So, it's going to help you interpret the signals that people give off. So, you're looking at people's facial expressions, you're listening to the tone of their voice, you're looking at their posture. Even subtle shifts in energy can tell us something. So emotional intelligent leaders, they use those signals to kind of guide how they respond. That is being service oriented. So our first goal is to understand what's happening with your people, with your employees before we're trying to influence them. So it's important to remember that expressing empathy, it involves emotion. It's okay as leaders that we show emotion. Saying something like, I can see how frustrating that must be. That really helps people feel seen and understood. Your facial expressions, your tone, your posture, those all communicate whether you genuinely care. And as leaders, we need to show that we genuinely care. We need to show up for our staff in order to build that trust. So when leaders do this really well, when we can take the emotional pulse of a team or organization and navigate, it helps navigate complexity without creating unnecessary friction in the office.
And then relationship management is where everything comes together. It's the ability to use your awareness of yourself and others and build strong relationships and positively influence people. As an owner and for Felicia as a manager, we feel a lot of responsibility for the team that work under us. I do feel, and in particular, being a woman in a very female-dominated industry now, that I have a responsibility over what is a lot of women underneath me, or, some young men and a lot of young women underneath me to be that role model leader. And sometimes leadership is hard. We do have a lot of difficult things that we have to discuss, but it can be very rewarding when you really see those people under you grow and develop professionally. And, even for example, like some of our team went out for dinner last night separately. That brings me so much joy to see a team who have integrated well and have each other's backs. So using this influence that we have, it can really do great things. So what this includes in our lives is mentoring. We do a lot of mentorship within our team, and also for students coming up through who are thinking of working in the dental world, co-op students and students thinking of dentistry, and even people within our industry. I'll sometimes jump on a call with a random dentist in North America because they ask for some mentorship questions. I think it's a very positive thing to be building those relationships around you, and inspiring others and being inspired by others. I have a lot of dentists in the industry that I'm so inspired by, and I look to for their leadership, whether it's directly or watching what they're doing and seeing their career progressing. And then to be that person for people who work with you, to inspire them and really share that passion of dentistry that you have, and maybe even its leadership within and outside of the office. I love being a mom. So I think that can be inspiring to some of the people who work underneath me, to have a family life. So also managing conflict. I definitely have learned a lot. I wasn't always great at managing conflict, and it's still a work in progress at all times. But not being being snappy with people, really trying to grow into my maturity of managing conflict, and really trying to look at it as a private investigator to figure out what happened, but where do we actually move on from here? Because sometimes it's not always about let's go over every nitty-gritty detail of what's happening, but it's actually the piece that you can bring to it is like, what does chapter 2 look like? Like, let's draw a line under chapter 1, and then this is what our clinic does. And Felicia and I use that quite a bit, where we'll say, these are the standards of our office. These are the professionalism standards, or these are the standards clinically, or whatever it means. So this is the standard. So then how do we get there, or how do we move on from that? Fostering teamwork. We do so much for team building, and we have many, many ideas for team building and team meeting agendas inside our resources for you to lean on. Because I do feel that a team that are trained together and build a lot of teamwork together, they are there for you when someone calls in sick, and they will cover. And if that's not happening for you, it means that maybe they don't value each other to the extent that you wish, and so there's some teamwork to be done. Developing others through feedback. We do a lot of feedback with our team, and so then we have to be careful that we're structuring it so that it's positive feedback and not negative criticism, even if there's some difficult things that need to be brought up. But really, the goal is not to lose that person as a team member. The goal is to develop them, and develop them professionally, and team retention, because it's far better to have that person and keep them and train them into what you're hoping for, rather than always searching for somebody new. And influencing with integrity, like doing this, but doing it to be genuine, and to actually be that leader. And it feels good. Honestly, it feels good. It feels better for Felicia and I. Felicia has the hardest role of all, I believe, because she took over management of our multi-clinics, so that I could sort of step back from that piece. But that's a very heavy role to have, and that's a lot to have on your shoulders, and it can be quite a lonely and tough place. And then recently I said, "Oh, how's your year going?" She's like, "I'm thriving this year." How many of you feel that your managers feel that way? And by providing good emotional leadership, and being that person, it can come back on yourself, and you can actually really feel good and start to thrive in this position. So let's get a little bit practical. Here are some strategies that you can start to use right away. So And these might seem simple, but honestly, you have to check yourself because we often forget to do these things in the day-to-day flow of between a root canal and a crown prep. So these are very, very simple things that we can do when the compressor has gone on fire and everything else is falling apart. Using people's names. It sounds so simple, but using people's names makes them feel seen and acknowledged. It signals respect and it helps create connection in everyday interactions. One thing that Felicia and I have tried to get away from, but obviously you fall into the trap all the time. I don't mean you, Felicia, I mean one falls into the trap, is I try and avoid saying girls about my team, like, oh, go and see the girls. Like that really, I think, diminishes. They're not girls, they are women who work for me. I don't have any 12-year-olds working here. And I also try not to relate to people as pieces of, furniture or by their job role necessarily. So not that their job role is disrespectful, but they are a person and I like my patients to connect with that person. So we don't tend to like to say, go out to front desk and say, we'll say, go out to this person and give their name. So when we're talking to our team members or when we're referring to our team members, I think it's a really good habit to have. Not giving mixed signals. Trust is built on consistency. And if your tone, facial expression, and message do not align, people will notice. And trust erodes quickly. You actually have to, live the life and walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Model healthy feedback. Strong leaders both receive feedback well and give feedback clearly. Provide feedback that is specific and actionable and don't protect people from information that could help them grow. I think that I used to find it quite tricky to hear day-to-day micro feedback, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. So then I just said to people, what I'm going to do is I keep a digital post-it on my desk and I just put it all down so that they know that they have imparted that piece of information to me, but I don't have to deal with it in that moment. So then I can set aside time in my week or in my month, whatever that might look like, to actually get it done and actually reflect on the piece of information that they've given me so that they feel valued. And then I also, it's not, it's fitting into my workflow of my day. A simple framework for providing feedback that's specific and actionable is here's what I'm seeing, here's why it matters, and here's what I recommend. It's clear, it's respectful, it's development focused. We also really love people bringing solutions to us. And so then if they are coming with something, well, sometimes the situation might be, thank you for telling me. Can you come back to me when you have some ideas for how we can resolve? Explain your decisions. Don't just make decisions, explain the reasoning behind them. When people understand what you're thinking, they will feel respected and included, even if they might disagree. So we often will have major team meetings where all of our team are together and we're making maybe a big change to the office. We don't just blindside our team and say, hey, we're implementing this big change. We'll kind of give them some ideas as to why this is happening and what's going on. And then that really helps when patients call and ask about the thing. Everybody's in the loop. Everybody knows and everybody kind of gets it and everybody agrees with it. And if they don't agree with it, they at least understand where you're coming from. Align intent with impact. Sometimes our intentions are positive, but the impact lands differently. So you may intend to motivate, but the impact might cause anxiety or confusion. Emotionally intelligent leaders close that gap by just asking, how did that land for you? How did you feel about that? That question alone will build trust, credibility, and stronger relationships.
So these four areas, they don't operate in isolation. They all work together, as you can see. So self-awareness without self-management can lead to really emotional reactions. And then self-management without having that empathy for others and your employees, it can make a leader seem really rigid or even like disconnected to the office and to the staff. And then having empathy without the courage to address issues can actually just lead to avoiding really important conversations that can help your office grow and help your employees grow and even help you grow. So true emotional intelligence, it happens when all four competencies work together. A strong leader needs to develop that balance across self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management.
So before we wrap up, we want to leave you with 3 reflection questions. What triggers me most often? Where do I need to pause more? And how can I better align my intent with my impact? Leadership isn't about eliminating emotion. It's about using emotion intelligently. And emotional intelligence, it's not a soft skill. It's a leadership accelerator. When you regulate yourself, you stabilize your team. When you understand others, you strengthen trust. When you align intent and impact, you build credibility. And when you balance all 4, you become the kind of leader that people trust, respect, and choose to follow.
Thank you guys so much for spending this time with us. We really appreciate you being here. And we challenge you, practice the pause this week and just see kind of what shifts. If you enjoyed this webinar, we really hope that you'll join us for our next live, which is happening on Monday, May 25th at 12 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be discussing onboarding new team members. So we will see you then. Thank you so much.